Hey y'all, welcome back. This is Trey with TreyMixes.com. We're going to continue with our mixing from scratch series, and we're going to move on today. We're hitting the electric guitars since we finished our drums and bass. If you're just now joining us, we've done our edits, our setups, our mix bus, some drum and bass mixing, and now we're moving on to electric guitars today. Little housekeeping first. If you've been enjoying these, hit the subscribe button, share them. If you found something useful, you think other people could benefit from it, hit the share button, hit the little thumbs up to help me out, and subscribe's a big deal. Head over to TreyMixes.com and get a free ebook on saturation. Help improve your mixes immediately. No further ado, let's get into this. We'll have a quick listen to see where we're at. All right, we had our vocals turned off so we can focus on getting our music as awesome sounding as we can, and so the vocals aren't distracting us because we all tend to listen to the vocals when vocals are in on almost anything. So let's make these guitars really pop. A couple of things that I have been hearing as we've been going through this, but the first thing we're going to do, like all of them, we're going to do our bus processing first. So we're going to start with EQing our electrics and see if we can get rid of anything we don't need or find any problem frequencies that may be an issue. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to high pass filter and get out any unnecessary low frequencies that are going to conflict with the kick and the bass in this mix. Keep it from getting muddy, and I'll probably do like I do with a lot of high pass filters and add this little resonant peak. You see this little hump happening here to really get a little more oomph out of our low end, but still keep out all the frequencies we don't really need down here. So let's have a listen and see where we're thinning this out at. Right about there, it's getting really thin and it's lacking any low end, so we're going to roll it back from there. But let me move this back a little bit further so you can see it's really bringing in a little this really huffy low end when I come back too far. So listen to this. So see that really low stuff we're getting around 100 we don't need, and that's getting in the way of our bass note. Because our bass fundamental is hitting a lot in the area of 80 to 120. So we're smack in the middle of that. We want to get rid of it. Okay. We'll play with this little peak here a little bit. You can A-B it, back up the video a little bit, and A-B it a little bit more, where I just did that to here, where it makes the guitars kind of clean up a little bit, getting rid of this stuff because it's out of the way of the bass. With a lot of electrics, we have a lot of really, really high-end hiss that will also be getting in the way of cymbals. It just clouds things up way up top and gets really harsh. So I'm going to do the same thing that we just did with a high-pass filter. We're going to do a low-pass filter. So let's see if we can back this off until we're hearing it really be a problem, and then we'll give a little bit back. We'll put it about there. Any further down, we start cutting into the brightness in the top end of the tone. But as I'm about to demonstrate, I don't know if these were recorded on a digital amp or if they were recorded on a live amp. I don't know. But a lot of electric guitars tend to have harshness in this 2 to 5K range, generally between 4 to 6. And this is the special secret tip today. If you don't get anything else out of this, 4K, 5K, 6K, you need to, it depends on the guitars, depends on the amps, depends on the distortion, but they can really produce some really, really rough, piercing resonant frequencies in about that range. So let's see, maybe we can get rid of them with a shelf, but let's see if we can find the peaks first. It's not really a thing at 4, but once we start getting to 5, listen to how much this really starts to whistle. And of course, it's going to sound weird because I'm boosting 12 dB or more at this one place, but you can really hear how it starts to be present with every note that's hit, and it's just harsh. We don't want to be having people's ears fall off while they're trying to listen to our music. Okay, hopefully that wasn't too piercing or problematic for you to hear, but since there's so many in that range between 5 and 6, let's try this. Let's just pull out a little with a shelf and see what happens. It does seem like we're cutting out a lot of highs there, but let's see what it sounds like in the mix. Yes, we're not losing any of the major tone of the instrument. We're not losing a lot of grit, but we're definitely losing a lot of those whistling, piercing, high-end noises that are happening there. Since we did chop some of that off, let's just play around with our EQ a little bit more. See if we can find a way that we can improve our tone and brighten it up. A lot of your high mids, your 2 to 6, is also where a lot of the sound of the guitar will live. So let's see if somewhere in our 1 to 4 range, somewhere in there, if a little bit of boost doesn't help brighten us up in the mix. Yeah, I think I like a little bump there. Just give it a little bit more presence, especially since we're coming right into a cut. That's kind of when your presence knob on an amp. That's kind of what that is. It's a little bit of a resonant boost at where the high knob is on your guitar amps. Just for those of you who may be guitar players. All right, let's see if we can get rid of some offensive stuff that I know I'm hearing in this low end that's muddying this up. just gunk. All of it. So let's do ourselves a little bit of a favor and give ourselves a little bit more low end back and widen this dip out. Make sure we're not cutting into our chunky chunks. Okay, now that'll clean that up immediately. It gets a lot tighter real fast. All right, let's see where we're at now. Okay, that I was watching the Spectro there, and that note tends to pop up a little bit from time to time, but it didn't seem like it was affecting anything else except that. So let's see if we can just pull down just enough to knock that ringing peak down. Okay, a little notch filter like that could be really useful most of the time. If there's something like that that shows up, it just starts to ring, you can get rid of it like that. You can also get rid of it like that for you think there's a ringing all the time, kind of like we did up at our 5K shelf we added, but it just happened that we could knock out a bunch of frequencies with a shelf. Otherwise, you'd have seen 3 or 4 of those little notch filters up there getting rid of super piercing problematic frequencies. So I think that might be it for this. So let's check our EQ while we're playing with the mix. Yeah, I think I like that. And these moves are real subtle. The AB of the on and off of the EQ should be fairly obvious. So it's that it's getting a little less harsh and a little less muddy. But if I can do all that on the bus and just affect the overall guitar sound, then I won't have to mess with each individual guitar track unless there's a problem that I keep hearing and I can't get rid of. So I think that that's why bus processing is so powerful, is that just like the drums, we could get our entire drum sound and then worry about individual drums. The same with everything else. We can get our electric guitar sound and our vocal sound first, then we can deal with the individual tracks as needed. So save ourselves a lot of work. So let's get rid of this window here. And since we have these chunky chunks that only show up part of the time, there's a thing that I like to do. Let's grab our multi-band compressor again. And we are going to come back over here and find where these palm mutes are happening, where the guitars get super chunky. All right, we're just going to deal with that part. This might get annoying, by the way, what's coming up about to happen. But let's see if we can find them, and with this, just like with the bass, if we can smooth out the chunkiness of the tone so it's not jumping out at you at some places and pulling back at others and really becoming a distraction, I'm going to use a multiband compressor to just grab those parts where the volume jumps up in that low range, because as you can see, it's fairly consistently louder than the other parts, because it has those low energy frequencies that are really focused there and are going to start popping out. So let's just see if we can get us a band. We'll solo this band just so we can hear it. And then I want to see if I can find just those. Let's get some real compression going on here. I'm going to find just those frequencies and see if we can compress them. Just those frequencies. Okay, funny enough, you see how that just harshness way up there in these guitar sounds, and I'll pull it back to about 5 like we have with the EQ, just to further demonstrate what I mean by these guitar amps being so hissy and harsh up there. That sounds brutal. Anyway, though, I think we've isolated our 100 to 500. 520 is just where the setting is. Okay, so I want a really fast attack to grab those things, and its default is at 2 milliseconds, and that's really fast. But I'll leave it there while we adjust and see how the threshold reacts. We're going to start with 3 to 1 just to have a light ratio, because we just want to kind of control these things. I don't want to crush them because it's part of the sound, but I want them to even out and not jump out at the audience. Okay, pull that release back down so that it's bouncing in time with the song and tempo. Okay, let's unsolo it and hear what we did. Okay, it was getting to sound a little pumpy, so I opened the attack and lowered the ratio a little bit just so it's not compressing quite so much. And it seemed to be a lot smoother. And I'm just going to tame it just a couple of dB. I mean, we're talking a very tiny amount. Neighborhood of 3 decibels is what we're knocking off. And it's only going to operate in this time where it's chunky palm mutes. And I don't want it to do it the rest of the way because those low mids are part of what we're getting out of the rest of the guitar sound. We just want to control it when they jump out at us. And this is one way to do that, by just having a multi-band compressor on those parts. Now, in a lot of ways, I would add back the gain. Like if you go watch the bass video, we added it back because we want it always present. But here, if it's never compressing except that part, we'll be adding back all those low mids that we cut out with the EQ that we don't want, and it's just going to muddy up our sound. So let's just see if this tightened this up. We'll check it in the mix. Yes, it controls that rumbly, muddy sound a whole lot better this way. But it didn't take a huge hit in volume, but it's controlling that muddy sound. So this is great. This is what we kind of will be looking for here. Good stuff. So let's see if there's anything else we can do to make these guitars sound really tight and sit well here. One thing I normally like to at least try is, I know that guitars are already very, very, very saturated. They're heavily distorted. But sometimes, because of peaks and valleys in your frequencies, so like right here, it's pretty dynamic in certain parts where these chunks are. In other parts, see how compressed they are? So we're not going to go about our business of compressing, because they're so consistently volume because of how distorted and compressed they are. But sometimes you can smooth out those frequencies with saturation. My favorite little toy. Quick reminder, TreyMixes.com. Go get your saturation book. And let's just see if this does anything for us. If it doesn't, no big deal. But we try things. It's good to experiment and try things in your mixing. Okay, I only added just a little bit because I didn't want the volume difference that this knob adds to be problematic for, and of course if we hear something louder we're going to think it's better. So I want to turn the volume down to adjust, but I just know what it sounds like here. So I don't want to go adjusting our volume a ton. So just a tiny bit of saturation. Listen to what happens to the tone of this guitar, the high, mid-range. Saturation is beautiful at just focusing that sound and really making it the prime focus. So I'll turn this off and turn it on and off so you can kind of hear what I'm talking about. And I think I like this a lot. So again, once you've done a lot of this, you can kind of really start to feel where this affects the tone more so than just adding volume. And that's why a teeny tiny bit of this goes a long way. And in this scenario, I like it. You can tell when it's off and on its own, when it kind of gets dull versus when it gets more bright and even. And if you're listening to it on nice headphones or in big stereo like I am, then you can really hear the width of these guitars kind of separate even more, because the smoothness that it's applying to the upper mids are kind of creating the idea of extra width. So I like that, and we're going to keep it that way. Now, the last thing that I think I'm going to try here is putting a delay on these guitars. You'll see this a lot with guitars. It helps create a sense of space. And instead of creating a send, like I would for a lot of effects, I'm just going to drop my delay right on this bus because we're not using it anywhere else. And I do not care to create a send just for the one effect in this case. Since we're working on a bus and it's a direct insert, we do not want to have our output mix cranked way up because it's 100%. With a send, you obviously would turn your send up a little bit to send it there. But a fast delay, let's try this guy. A good quick delay helps create a sense of space and a little separation in these guitars. So stereo delay, because we're working on stereo bus, and I want the left and the right to sound differently. Now this 16th note preset I just picked, let's turn this way down, just about there. We'll put it slightly different. Yeah, just a little bit different. Okay, so let's get rid of all those highs that we didn't really like. So we're just filtering out our EQ here. Now let's see what just putting a little bit of a delay on the guitar does to it. Do you hear that? Hear that quick fade of those feedbacks? It's a little heavy. And we filter these so that we get more separation, so that these don't add to the muddiness of the sound. But it gives us that sound of the real amp. We're not doing tons of additional reverb that may muddy it up, at least not at the moment. I like adding spring reverbs to guitars. We'll see. And one thing you may want to do is not put your delays exactly on tempo. So let's change this up just a little bit. Especially here at the pauses. Very cool, very cool. So we'll turn this down even more, though. We don't want it to be affrontive and in the middle of our attention. Okay, pretty cool little effect. It's very subtle, and so we don't always have to add effects because we want it to jump out at us that something is, oh, check out that awesome delay that they put on the guitar amp. But ever since Van Halen and even before that with Hendrix and some other very, very popular classic rock guitar players, they started adding delays into their sounds even before that because of added a little bit of thickness, added a little bit of separation. It made it sound like a bigger chorused sound, more players were in the mix. And this is a really big help in scenarios like this where we want to create this sense of movement, and these small, tiny delays that are somewhat inaudible, they can add that sense of movement to your track. See, that's like all delay. So let's just add in what we want. Cool. Excellent. So let's check out kind of what we did with our guitars. Check it in the mix and see if we like where we're at. Okay, I lowered the volume on the left guitar a little bit. It was getting louder than the right guitar in a couple of spots, so a little bit of volume adjustment as we go. No big deal. So that's where we are with this. If you liked it, found something helpful, let me know about it. Leave a comment. Leave any kind of additional information or something you think that would also be a neat trick that you do for your guitar buses. Like, subscribe, share, all the regular stuff. I appreciate it. Sticking around this long, and we're just going to keep moving forward from here. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.